June 23rd, 2021 monthly meeting of the Dickinson County School Board is now in session. For the record, I would like to recognize that all school board members are present. In addition, Tanya Baker, Board Clerk, Scott Mullins, School Board Attorney, and Mrs. Robinson, Division Superintendent. At this time, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Board members, we have the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes or revisions to the agenda.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
Aye.
Aye.
That brings us to public comment. Mr. Hicks, will you please read the guidelines for public comment?
A period of time for public comment will be designated on the meeting agenda during which the public may comment on issues related to public education. The Dickinson County School Board believes that the citizens of the county should be heard and that this is an acceptable format for receiving public comment. After the public comment section of the meeting is closed, the public shall not be allowed to participate in general board member discussions regarding agenda items. Public participation with the board members regarding agenda items can be disruptive, and the practice is prohibited by Robert's Rule of Order. It is the desire of the school board to treat each member of the public fairly and equally. Allowing one individual to participate while excluding others is unfair. The board may hold such public hearings as may be necessary to allow the public to more fully express their concerns, or the board may place the public comment section of any meeting at the end of the meeting to allow additional public comments. While we do not wish to restrict the free expression of opinion, we feel that certain restrictions may be necessary so that order and reasonable standards of decorum may be maintained. We ask that the following standards be adhered to. The speaker will be recognized by the chair. Each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes. Speakers will refrain from the use of vulgarity or profanity and will avoid negative or embarrassing comments directed toward specific children or students. Board members should not respond to issues presented by speakers unless clarification is necessary. Matters of concern raised under public comment will be referred to the proper official for investigation and future board consideration if necessary.
Thank you. Mr. Setzer, will you please be our timekeeper? We have Jason Edwards. And if any members of the public would like to call in and speak during public comment, please call 835-1620.
My name is Jason Edwards. I teach world geography here at the middle school. I just wanted to bring attention to our grading scale, if that's something we could take a look at. We're currently on the 7-point grading scale. I have taught in Fairfax County and Prince William County, both that are on a 10-point grading scale. I think that, for our students here, it'd be great if we could level the playing field a little bit. A child in Prince William that has an 85, that's a B for them, that's a C for us. So when we're, applying for colleges or trying to get scholarships or incentive in housing, the honors housing, so forth, so on, it would really help if we had a level playing field there. The other one is it's statistically proven that when a school system changes from a 7-point to the 10-point, the self-esteem goes up. The student self-esteem goes up. I mean, they're accomplishing more and getting, getting better grades. It'll help parents also. Better grades means, discounts on your insurance, discounts on, other student incentive situations. Again, I would just like for us to take a look at it and see what we can do to kind of help our kids out a little bit. I understand that the 7-point grading scale is set up for a tougher, tougher academia, but I just think we need to really look at leveling the playing field. trying to help kids out when we do apply for schools and so forth, so on. The other one is most universities and colleges are already on the 10-point scale. Our AP classes are on 10-point scale. Our dual enrollment's 10-point scale. So I don't know why everything else just don't make that move and catch up. But thank you. Any questions, or is that it? You guys good? Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If any members of the public would like to call in and speak during public comment, please call 835-1620. For public comment, we would like to recognize Kathy Music with VPE. I believe she's here. And Phyllis Mullins with the DEA. Is Phyllis here? Is there anyone else who would like to speak for public comment? Again, the phone number for the public to speak is 835-1620.
Mr. Mullins, I see Mr. Wallace telling us that there's no one. No one, okay.
Our next agenda item is the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes, approval of monthly bills, discussion of the school activity funds, approval of elementary school construction invoices, and the approval of the construction account reconciliation document. Any questions or discussion on the consent agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move. Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
Aye.
Our next agenda item is information for the school board. Mrs. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, board members. You see under information for the board, there are several VSBA virtual conferences and seminars available to the board in July. And we are hoping, from everything that we have heard from the VSBA, that they will begin in-person conferences for next school year, 21-22. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Robinson, will you please tell us about good news from our schools?
Well, this is always a bittersweet moment for myself when we recognize teachers and our staff who have dedicated years to the Dickson County School Board office and to the Dickson County schools. This particular year, we have 5 retirees for a total of 146 years of experience and dedication. 146 years total. So you see there's a lot of experience, a lot of love, a lot of commitment, a lot of hours of work, just so much. And I see 2 of them here, and I hope that there would be more, but if they come in, then we'll certainly recognize them. Let me recognize the ones that I do not see here. Tammy Davis, teacher at Sand Lake Elementary School, 34 years of service. Peggy Edwards, aide and bus driver, 30 years of service. Lana Mullins, bus driver, 22 years of service. At this time, we do have 2 of our retirees that we would like to recognize. These 2 ladies are very close to me, I think. I met them probably the first week I was here. And one thing that I remember about Norma Hay is that whenever I walked into her pre-K classroom, there was always a lot of fun. Always a lot of fun. And she always greeted me with a smile and had the same smile for her children, her staff, her peers. Everyone loved Norma Hay. And I think she told me that she would go to the grocery store or wherever she would go, and these children would come up to her, and maybe she couldn't exactly remember them or who they were after 30 years, but they always knew Miss Norma. They always knew Miss Hay. So I'm thrilled that she's here with us. And our next one is Monica Wright. Monica has been our payroll clerk for 30 years. Both of these ladies have been with us through good and bad. They've been here the entire time that I've been here. I was hoping that they would stay a little longer, but I understand. And I'm a little envious, but I understand. And Monica Wright. So I would just like to ask Norma Hay and Monica Wright if they'll please meet me in front of the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, in appreciation for 30 years of service to the Dickson County School System, July 1st, 2021, this is Norma. They're going to take our pictures right here. And Mr. Hay, you've also been a part of this, hasn't you, Norma? Very much so.
Best thing about it is after 30 years, I get my life back.
You won't know what to do.
Justin says excited mommy's back.
Good. You can take our picture. Our next one is our payroll clerk, and the reason that we love Miss Monica is that she pays us. She's the one, and I dare to say that in the last 30 years, there's never been payroll that's been late. There's never been anyone who wasn't paid, and has kept all those records for all those years. So would you please help me to recognize Monica Wright in appreciation for your 30 years of service, Dickson County Schools. Monica, congratulations. Let's have our picture made. And if you ladies will please just walk, if you don't mind, and let me, at least let the board shake your hand and thank you for your years, okay? Mr. Ray, you can go back to and thank them. See ya.
Congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please help me to recognize Monica and Norma.
Pleasure working with you. You're one of the best. Thank you so much.
Now, people that retire from the school system, they never really retire. You know, we have a special project, we have a long-term sub, Mr. Hay, you know, we call these people back.
You ain't getting her back.
I just wanted to warn you, sir. Norma, leave us your cell phone number.
I sure did.
She won't give me her cell phone number either. We can just take one more picture with her. You don't trust her anymore, do you? Yes, yes, absolutely. We'll send you the pictures. Mine, just mine.
Take one more picture.
I know, we need to. we can just take one more picture. And ladies and gentlemen, will you please help me to recognize these two ladies and all of our retirees. 146 years of experience are leaving our school division.
Read it. There you go. Well, that's the COVID year.
Yeah, that's what you'll always remember.
I'll choose the best one.
Say, she's gonna smile. A story for Norma is that the last year she taught virtual. And we asked her to teach virtual, and she said, I've never done this before. She said, but I'll try it. I'll never forget that, Norma.
I remember coming in my classroom right before school started, and it was so stressful, because, none of us knew what we were doing. And I told Mrs. Robinson that, I said, I'm so stressed, I'm eating ice cream for supper straight out of the box. Do you remember?
I do. I was eating it with you. But we survived and really just.
And you all, you've done a wonderful job with it, with everything changing every day. I just don't know how you kept up with everything. So it was appreciated.
You're very much, thank you so much. You're so much appreciated. Thank you. All right. Yeah. Don't know what we'll do without our retirees. All right. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Setzer. Mr. Setzer, if you'll come to the front, please.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. I think the attendance data is yellow, if it's in your packet. The division ended the school year with 1,931 students, and that number is significant because we began the year with 1,912 students. This is the first time my memory is not as good as it used to be, but this is the first time in several years that we've actually increased through the year rather than dropped. So we did increase this school year by 19 students, and that's very positive. As far as attendance percentages, for the month of May and June combined, Sam Lake Elementary was the attendance winner with a rate of 93.83%. And as we always do, we want to thank all of our schools for the work they do with attendance, and especially this year with the unique situations that we had throughout the year. For the year, we'd like to congratulate Clintwood Elementary School, who ended the year with a rate of 96.89%. So with that said, we conclude the 2021 school year, and if there's no questions for me, I'll sit down.
Any questions for Mr. Setzer? Thank you, Mr. Setzer.
Our next agenda item is update on the new elementary school. Mrs. Robinson.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Burge to come to the front, please. Hello, sir. Hello. Welcome again.
Well, the month of May and up until now has been pretty successful on the project. They have poured all the footers to the school. They started underground plumbing. They put in the electrical feed around the east side of the site. They've are working on the water line that we had to reroute around the school. So things are going really well out there this month. Things are starting to shape up. Skanska's been on site, and we're monitoring the progress and making sure quality is done as well. I will say that Quisenberry has done a great job, and their sub, Rising Sun, has done a super job with the footers. I'd never worked with them before, but they've done a great job. The project still remains in budget, overall budget. We spent $3,053,264 so far. We're still Skanska's still working with the county on procuring FFE and technology, as we continue to go through that process. Next.
And you have this report on your table also for you.
The first one here is a photo on the left as in beginning of May, and then what it looked like yesterday in Area C, which is the cafeteria area. You can see over there on the last picture, on the one on the right, you see that styrofoam looking stuff. That's what the exterior walls are going to be made out of. Areas B and C, you can see them early the month. Yesterday's photo again. There's another photo of A and B, all the footers going in early a month and at the end of the month. You can see the site there early the month and where we are now. Then the last one is Area A, which is the wing coming back towards this way. And you can see that at the first of the month there was no footers there, and now they're all there. So the project's going well. I'm really pleased with the amount of work that they've done. They're still on schedule, which is a good thing, and I'm hoping to see them even make up more time with this ICF walls that the exterior walls will be made up of. Have a little. You might want to turn around. I have a little 1-minute video from the last school board meeting till yesterday. I don't think I sent that one to you yet.
No, you haven't.
It messes with your eyes for sure. But you can see the footers going in over there on A. And they're coming down here with the electric line on the near side here, cutting across, getting ready to cut across on the south side of the building with the electrical line, while they're continuing to work over there in A, doing the elevator pit and the remaining footers. Then they started, their plumber has started their underground. And then the next thing you should see should be the walls going up here on the east side. So that's what's happened over the past month. Progress looks good. Any questions?
In July, if you'll wear boots, Mr. Burge would like to give the board a tour of the building. We'll take just a short recess and let the board actually walk out there and to see, one thing is seeing it in pictures, but actually being there. And we will schedule those periodically throughout the next year so that every month or so we'll get to go out there and actually see the progress. And that's that's good to actually see that. I also sent some aerial drone pictures today, which were really also just awesome to see. So again, if there's anything, Mr. Burge is always available. If there's anything that he can help you with, or if we can help you with, please let us know. But during the July meeting, if you'll wear some kind of older clothes maybe, especially if it's rained, and boots, do we need to, and you'll have hard hats for us?
We probably won't need any because
Okay,
everybody will be
no hard hats,
by the end of the
but
day.
we'll just walk out there during a recess and be able to actually watch what's been done.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us down to discussion of the FY21 budget end of the fiscal year summary. Mrs. Taylor.
Thank you, Brian.
Can you hear me? Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's good to see you this evening. Just wanted to give you an update on where we are with our current fiscal year 21. We are currently wrapping that up. We are doing a daily monitoring of revenues that we expect that may or may not post before June 30th, as well as rounding up any remaining documentation needed to make a few more payables. So we do not have an end of the year ready for you tonight, as there is still 1 week left in the fiscal year. We have also, we have processed, or will have processed, 3 payroll runs in the month of June to include the summer school, the additional summer school payroll. So it is a very fluid process, so I just wanted to kind of give you an update on where we are. I think you have the check registers in your approval as of the 23rd, which is today. And so there will still be a few items, revenue and both expenditures, still going through for the rest of the month. At the end of the year, on June 30th, we will be providing a document to Dickinson County. It will detail the final fiscal year 2021 revenues and expenditures. It will also detail what carryover funds we are requesting for fiscal year 21-22, and those will be broken down in the categories of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, the GED testing, textbook funds, and operating funds. You'll probably remember that we had discussed the operating funds. There was 3 different types of categories that were additional state funding. And so that would be the no-loss funding, the learning loss instructional funds, and then the additional monies that we received off of the change in ADM as of March 31st. Those carryover amounts, they're also fluid right now and subject to change, but should be somewhat close to our initial determination. The end-of-year financial summary, as it is sent to Dickinson County, will also be sent to each member of the school board for you to approve in July. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? So that brings us down to the discussion of the FY22 proposed budget. Ms. Taylor?
And in the same manner, this is just kind of an update of where we are. You are, I'm sure, well aware that the Board of Supervisors' June meeting to approve their budget, excuse me, is scheduled for June the 29th, which is next Tuesday. So until that we come to that date and they have voted on their budget, we are kind of in a holding pattern on where we will go with our budget and can't move further. As soon as that is done and we receive the determined amount of local appropriations from Dickinson County, we will revise our proposed budget and we will be sending that to you as soon as possible for your review, and then you can approve that in July as well.
Any questions for Ms. Taylor? Later in our meeting, we are going to ask the board's approval to help us to pay bills between now and the 30th, since our meeting in June is early. But we will get to that agenda item at later in the meeting. And the proposed salary.
So that brings us down to the approval of the proposed salary scales for DCPS employees and coaching stipends. Ms. Taylor and Ms. Robinson.
We've attached for your consideration the proposed revised salary scales and coaching stipends for the 21-22 school year. As you recall, you reviewed the draft salary scales for employees at the May school board meeting. The only revision is to change the proposed salary scales for the coordinators scale, which we revised from 1 scale to 2 scales, instructional coordinator and support coordinator. As you recall, I think I'm pretty certain I sent that earlier to you, but that is there also. We met with the members of the Dickinson County Education Association, DEA, on Thursday, the day after the board meeting, and then emailed the proposed salary scales to all of our employees immediately after the school board meeting on May the 26th. So at this time, we are recommending the approval of the proposed FY22 salary scales and the FY coaching stipends as presented. Ms. Taylor, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
I think you pretty much covered that, just the feedback that we received from the DEA and from the employees was very much favorable. And that was kind of where we wanted to wait last month before we moved forward. We felt about that, but all of the feedback that I have received from both areas has been very favorable.
Great. Do we have any questions or discussion on proposed salary scales and coaching stipends?
I have a comment, I guess it's a question. It's noted here that on March 24th that we approved the 5% salary increase for all employees. I received communication from a couple of staff members that I guess with their calculations, they were looking at it and with their step, I don't know if it's with their step included or just with their raise, they calculated that they have fallen short of the 5% increase. I think these staff members were in the 20-year plus, maybe between the 20 and 25-year range, and was just wondering if that was possible, or if that was a miscalculation, or something we could look at.
Well, basically, it's how you're looking at the calculations. There is a 5% increase, but the 5% increase, the way that the salary scales are constructed, the step amounts are in dollar amounts, and if they're not in percentages, it's never going to be exactly the same. So what you have to do is you add 5% to the base and let it flow through the chart. So there will always be variations, as you have seen. What we did ensure is that every employee received at least 5%. Some would receive more depending on their milestones. Now, the requirements for the 5% increase was over a biennium, and I think there was some misinformation about that. It was from the Department of Education, you should have received at least a 5% increase over 2 years.
From their salary 2 years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
And with the step that was given last year, they are all well over 5%.
Okay, can we send something out on that to staff members who may have that question?
Sure.
Because I think there's still some confusion.
We had explained that with the DEA meeting, and they all seemed to understand how that worked at that point in time, so we thought that had kind of been explained, but I don't mind at all to
thank you.
send that out.
We'll be glad to do that, yes. And if any staff members have a question, you know, Ms. Taylor is excellent to explain, so please, I know they may not know her, but, you know, they're certainly welcome to call her and contact her. Sometimes it just depends on where they are, you know, in the salary. But one thing that we did differently this year with the salary scales is that even if you were at the very top of the salary scale, you also received a 5%. And before, it was a cost of living percentage or something in that way. But this year, after COVID and all the things that our staff had to do, we were determined to make certain that at least a 5%. If you'll also look at the first page of the salary scales, that explains that the overall percentage was a 6.48%. I'm sorry, increase for that. So you see that, but we'll be glad to, Ms. Taylor, to send something out to the staff. And Mr. Hackney, if that doesn't answer the questions, then just please let us know and we'll do whatever we need to do.
Sure, thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the salary scales and the coaching stipends as presented?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Approval to submit ESSER 3 application for construction of additional classrooms to the new elementary school. Mrs. Robinson.
Thank you. We're very excited about this possibility. Start right here. In discussions with the county I'm sorry, excuse me just a moment, let me get back there. We're requesting the school board's approval to submit ESSER 3 applications to the Virginia Department of Education, requesting the use of $5.12 million from ESSER 3 funding to build an additional wing to the existing new elementary school construction project. The proposed wing, of course, would, with the additional classrooms, would allow the school board greater flexibility to increase student attendance at the new elementary school. We believe that we're in a unique situation to request this funding due to the following bullets. The current construction of the new elementary school, the age of the 2 remaining schools, maintaining appropriate mitigation strategies for COVID in older schools, and the 2018 OWPR report and needs assessments for both Irvington and Clintwood Elementary. The application must be submitted by September 1, 2021. We would like to submit this application as soon as possible for approval so that we can begin this design phase of the new classroom wing, which will be completed in 2023. So as you recall, the new elementary school, now the deadline is of fall of 2022, and then we're looking at, if we receive the ESSER funds, to complete the new wing in 2023. We recommend that the school board authorize a division superintendent and the school board attorney to work with Skanska to submit the application. We also recommend that the chairs and vice chairs of the school board, the board of supervisors, and the IDA, the county administrator, the division superintendent, Curtis Ellswick, the school board attorney, and any other member of the IDA and board of supervisors that would like to attend, to schedule a meeting in July to present the application and the goals of ESSER 3 funds. So let me stop there to see if you have questions or comments regarding this. I can share with you that Mr. Ellswick has been instrumental in helping us with this. Part of the application process requires a narrative, and so we have been diligent on working on the narrative, and the narrative includes the needs of both schools, Clintwood Elementary School and Irvington Elementary School. So we feel that we're in a unique situation. Most of the new construction that neighboring school divisions and school divisions across the state are talking about, they have not started anything. And so, you know, to begin the process of design and purchasing land, you know, all those things requires time. This money must be expended by 2024. But since we are already in a unique situation that we're under construction, the new elementary school is to be finished in 2023. In 2022. That gives us 2 years to finish the project of the additional wing and still receive reimbursement for that. So we just feel that we're in a very unique situation. So we're ready to send the narrative to see what else we need to add and then go through the entire application process. I think it's going to be few hurdles that we need to jump through, but we're ready to jump through them. I think the board is unanimous in its support for the ESSER application. Questions or comments? Mr. Mullins, would you like to add anything to that, sir?
No, it's a very exciting opportunity, and certainly we want to be optimistic and work it very hard, but we're also cautiously optimistic, and there are a lot of hurdles to clear.
Also, also I know that I had sent the board an email in discussions with the county administrator, and Starlink to provide internet service. We're still working through that, and if we will still have $1.2 million left from ESSER 3 funds for remediation. It's very specific, the use of those funds. We may be able to use some of those funds to partner with the county as far as providing internet or internet infrastructure. There are some issues with providing internet service, and I want to thank Mr. Hicks for his guidance and Mr. Wallace for their guidance as we went through this. I think I shared with you what those concerns were in providing families internet service. But I've shared with the county administrator that, whatever we can do to partner with the county, the Board of Supervisors, I feel like the board is very open to do. Right now, unless the board sees this differently or the pleasure of the board, perhaps ESSER 3 funds for construction seem to be the priority for that.
Right. Any more questions or discussions? Do we have a motion to approve the ESSER 3 application process?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That brings us down to the approval of the 2021-22 Retirement Incentive, DCPS policy. Mrs. Robinson.
Thank you. And we will keep you informed about ESSER 3 funds. We were very excited about that. As you know, with the retirement incentive, that for the last 2 years during budget workshops, a majority of the Board of Supervisors in varying degrees have expressed their concern with the school board's retirement incentive. I think at our budget meeting, Mr. Rasnick did an excellent job in discussing the retirement incentive plan, and that when it was implemented in the 1990s, it was a result of an agreement between the Board of Supervisors and the school board, primarily as a cost-saving strategies. Throughout the years, the retirement incentive has been modified to address the increased cost of health premiums. Currently, we have 17 retirees participating in the retirement incentive program. We're projecting a cost of $335,000 to fund the retirement incentive for the 21-22 school year. Of the 17 retirees, 5 are enrolled in employee only, and 12 retirees are enrolled in family health plan. The school board is keenly aware of the impact of any changes to the retirement incentive on its retirees. Because of this fact, for the 2021-2022 year, we are not recommending any changes to the retirement incentive, since it is late in the FY21 fiscal year, and we realize the havoc it would cause our current retirees. But I want to state publicly that if the decreases in local appropriation continues, I think the school board will be forced to analyze all options. As I said at the May meeting, I believe that I speak for myself and every school board member that we do not want to make any changes to the retirement incentive. We all would like to retain the integrity of the retirement incentive as much as possible and to protect the health insurance benefits provided to our employees. We all desire any future but necessary changes to the retirement incentive or the health insurance provided to our employees be done in incremental steps. To do this, there are some challenging and difficult decisions in the years ahead. To be clear, if we continue to face local appropriations, the board will be forced to consider these considerations. The first one would be to schedule meetings with retirees regarding the retirement incentive in October or November to discuss any potential changes and revisions to the retirement incentive. Second bullet point, full review of the retirement incentive in regard to the cost and savings ratio, and I think the board has authorized me and has requested that they receive a cost and savings ratio for the retirement incentive. Discuss possible changes in the number of years allowed to participate in the incentive. discuss potential changes in the coverage allowed from family to single only to employees, and if proposed changes are approved, discussion of when to implement and how to implement. So again, we recommend the school board's approval of the retirement incentive as presented, but understanding that in the year ahead, with local appropriations, proposed local appropriations decreases, the board will have to look at the retirement incentive very carefully. So, let me stop there and see if there are questions, comments. I apologize, my mouth is dry, so.
I spoke on it before, you know, definitely in favor of keeping the incentive intact for retirees. As far as any changes that were made to it, I think it's probably an ongoing situation to keep it feasible and within the fiscal, you know, realm of what we have to look at. It's probably an ongoing process each year to take a look at it and say, is this something we would have to do to make it better? There's definitely the relationship with the Board of Supervisors that impacts all that. But I think I mentioned it last meeting, it can be viewed as a cost savings incentive for our school system to have a retirement incentive in place. If we have to adjust it or tweak it, we would have to look at those things ongoing, but I'm in favor, as you spoke of, to keep it intact the way it is at this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Hackney.
I certainly concur with that. The fact is that in the beginning, it was seen that the differential between the salaries and the retirement, that when you hired a new teacher, that the difference offset some of those costs, but it's increased so much through the years, and I know the Board of Supervisors struggle with this with their plan too. I think an individual plan costs what now?
Our insurance plan at this time, Ms. Baker, health insurance for family, it's $23,000. Yeah, $23,000. The employee will pay $130 a month of that. Yes, sir.
Well, it depended on the Board of Supervisors back then, and there was agreement that in the long run, it was the common thought that it would be a cost savings measure over time. I have not made, I don't have the background of the information to calculate that, but I assume that some of that still has to be true. And if it is, I would hope that efforts, or if it's close, I would hope that efforts are made to keep it as is. I do think it's a very productive thing for the system and in the end to our children. I think that benefit reaches all elements of what we do, but it's a different day, and I know that. But I would hope that every person involved would study this carefully and continue as is, if possible, whatsoever.
And Mr. Resnick, as you recall, the board asked us to provide the school board a very detailed analysis. This is how many retirees we have, this is what it's costing us, if they work this long and salaries. So we hope to provide that for you in the fall. And at least it will give us a baseline of where we are. I also think we need to meet with our retirees. They need to be aware. This is something that the board votes on every year. And I want to be very careful that our retirees understand that we do honor the health insurance, we do honor the retirement incentive, but we may be in a situation that we have to look at that. So I hope to have a meeting and they may have some ideas as to, how can we look at our health insurance and how can we improve the cost and so on that way. I think we've done a very good job in doing that. It's been difficult, but we've had changes throughout the year, but now we're just facing, as you said, a new time, and,
Well, the fact is that you can't, the school board has no way to increase income.
yes, sir.
I mean, we're forbidden from raising taxes for good reason, and for any other, not able to borrow money either. So it's critical that these persons involved, affected by this, have early notice of what may be,
Yes.
and that the situation that they as a family may have to provide for if funds are not available, and if this benefit, if this incentive cannot be carried forward. They have to know exactly the boundaries of everything in their work life to be able to deal with
As
this.
they plan. Yes, sir, I agree.
And I think you've done a good job with that so far.
Well,
But it has to continue, though, and not be something that catch somebody
absolutely.
just off
And
guard.
we certainly, that wouldn't be. And, Mr. Mullins has been interviewing just nonstop here for several days, and as you know, our health retirement is one of our key benefits. And sometimes sometimes we as employees forget what a great benefit that is, that to pay, $130 a month for family health insurance. And the school board picks up the rest. It's just a fantastic benefit. So we will continue. I'm sorry, Mr. Hicks, were you going to say something? Did I interrupt you?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
No, I would just say I'd like to, I feel like we need to protect the integrity of this. I mean, here just earlier, we recognized some retirees, and they walked out the door with counting on this. And so, as we make those things, they need to be made aware very early. And, if we do have to make changes, I would like to keep the integrity of it to fulfill our obligation that we just made with those folks and finish it out if we have to end it for those in the future.
As I understand it, there's no proposed changes to the policy for now.
No, sir. We are recommending no changes, Dr. Lyle, because of the lateness in the year.
Any more questions or discussions? Do we have a motion to approve the 2021-22 retirement incentive policy as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Ms. Robinson, I think at this time, I know that we're doing the interviews and things. What is the status of our employment? I mean, are we having a lot of people show up, new people for interviews, or around the area, how does it stand?
I'll let Mr. Mullins, the question was, yes, I think in our area, it depends on the position. For example, when we were interviewing currently for nurses, we had a large pool of nurses. It seems like it works in cycles. Bus drivers, we interviewed bus drivers today, and we had a good pool of bus drivers before. We've not had bus drivers. So it just seems. Teachers, we're still facing a teacher shortage. And Mark, you may want to address this a little bit more since you're working with that.
For teachers, right now, we've been able to maintain our positions and fill our positions. There's definitely not as many applicants as we have seen in years past. But for now, I think tonight in closed session, after we go through that, for teaching positions, we will be able to fill our positions at this time. Support positions, bus drivers, we actually had more applications this time than we had in the past, so that's a good thing. A lot of our current employees have got that certification, received that CDL, and that has helped us out a lot. Nurses, We usually receive a lot of applications for school nurses. We did again this time. Maybe not as many in years past. School secretaries, custodians, support positions like that, not as many applications as we have seen in the past.
During your time, how do we, I know you talked to your colleagues probably about this issue. Where do we stand? Is the situation the same around the area, or is it
As far as teachers go, for sure, yes.
for professional staff?
Yes, definitely, and I think in general in all positions, to be honest with you, Mr. Rasnick, but everybody is, I won't say struggling, but everybody is looking very hard for teaching applicants. And that's, I think superintendents, I think personnel directors all would agree with that. You know, the state has loosened up some licensing requirements over the last couple of years just because of the teacher shortage. So I think everybody's in the same situation, to be honest with you.
So, Mr. Bones, everybody's looking. I had a conversation with one of our teachers here in the county a week or two ago, and they came up and made the statement that with 20 years' experience, they're making in Dickinson County what a first-year teacher might in a neighboring county. So as you being the recruiter, what's two things you say, I would imagine, would be the low cost of insurance and the possibility of maybe retirement incentive at the end of their career.
I tout that strongly.
That's all
I have got to tout.
It's the only card.
And it comes up in every interview. A lot of times, though, we're dealing with younger folks, and insurance is not as important to them. That's not always the case. Some folks will come in and be very up on the cost of insurance and understand that. But in general, you know, insurance is not as important at that moment. Teachers who have more experience, they do the calculations.
Well, most young people will be aware that that could change at any time. Life changes, and I think it would be important to anyone. But the thing is also that you have qualified people, and if these other counties are reaching out to them, and as Jason says, if you go 10, 15 years down the line, and their salary is up so much higher than the people in the, you know, in our county, that leaves the superintendent, the personnel director, and the division kind of at a low point as far as being competitive in that regard. And that's something we all need to be aware of, and I hope that everyone involved needs to be aware of.
Very much. I agree with what both of you all are saying, all of you. Our insurance, the cost of our insurance is the main thing that we have. That's the main thing that we have as far as recruiting, incoming employees. And then to go one step further, the retirement incentive. You throw that out there, it may not stick at the moment.
It might keep them around.
It might keep them around, and I think it does in a lot of situations. So yes, we use those. That's all we have.
There isn't a school division in this country that doesn't want to keep their people. And you want to offer people that you educate here in the county, offer them, those that go on and get prepared, you want to be able to offer them a reward as such. Just working at home is something a lot of them strive for. And I just hope we can keep a similar arrangement to what we have today at the best they can do, that everybody's aware of that challenge, and that we need to have good people that will stay with our children from, throughout the time.
I agree, Mr. Rasnick. I do. And I
I
think
think
it's
it was
important for
when we had older buildings, it was even probably a little bit more challenging when we had the high schools and no labs and those kinds of things. I think people come to Ridgeview and, my gosh.
You can promote nice facilities now.
Yes, yes.
Sure.
And, teachers pretty much, in talking with other superintendents, they can pretty much say, this is what I need to have, and if you, it's become a very negotiable type of a profession, but I do think having Ridgeview, and I think looking at the facility that, they're not coming into an older building, they're coming into a beautiful, beautiful building, and I think that does help. I know that Mark, we've used the of course, we say the truth, which is the health insurance and all the other benefits, but it does help to have a beautiful building, and we're proud of it. And they always say, you know, I've just seen Ridgeview and I can't believe it, and those type of things.
We have a lot of wonderful things to share with folks. I didn't mean that at all, but financial-wise,
Yes.
the insurance is the main thing that we.
Well, I think another drawing is, to publicize the standing in the SOL arena is of where this county was and where it's moved to. Anybody across this state of the United States that sees that understands how productive the people in Dickinson County have been. And that certainly ought to be an incentive, I would think, to add to the other things we have.
Yes.
But that stands out in a very excellent way.
Well, young people, when they leave college, they have college loans, okay? You know, some of them are starting families. You know, it's the financial. You know, how much am I going to make? And so we have an excellent interview team and principals, and once we get them here, I think they stay with us, and that, to me, is good retention. Status, but it's demanding. It's a struggle when everybody is facing that. And now, many times, Mr. Mullins will call at UVA Wise and say, who are the student teachers? Just tell me who's in education. You know, we may be interested, so.
I spoke to a young lady just a few days ago who is a teacher. She's from Dickinson County, but she's teaching in the Richmond area. And, you know, just was joking around. And I said, you know, when you coming back? When you want to come down here? We're looking for people. Come back home. And she was just visiting family. And she talked about what she was making up there. And I said, well, how much is your rent? And when she said that, it was, you know, I think it was up around $1,200 or $1,300. You know, if they think about it, they can make that up on the cost of living. We can promote that. You know, when you go to some of these metro areas, you're going to pay 3 or 4 times more for housing alone, not to mention other stuff.
Yes. Very true.
I think that brings us to our next agenda.
I think we need just a motion from the board on the retirement incentive. I don't know if I heard that.
I thought we did.
Okay. Where am I? I must be at another meeting. Excuse me. Mr. Rasnick, you said that very kindly. We already did.
We have a book to get through here.
Don't you turn back a page.
Mr. Rasnick will tell me I need to pay attention. Go ahead, sir, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Our next agenda item is approval of the proposed VSBA policies. Mr. Setzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of feel like I need to apologize to the board for the amount of information that is sent to you in these next 2 agenda items, but unfortunately one is dependent upon the other, and we were sort of caught between the time the VSBA releases the revisions and the time the printers need to produce the product we have to give the children at the beginning of the school year, and that's the reason for so much information. But it is our recommendation that we do adopt all the policy revisions as presented, but before we do so, I need I want to just mention a couple policies to the board, primarily because it affects the board directly. The first policy is BDD, electronic participation in meetings from remote locations. Of course, the board knows that procedure, but I want to make the board aware that there is another reason for that to occur listed in the policy, and that is when a board member needs to take care of somebody in their family because of a medical condition. They can now request to meet from a remote location as long as the quorum is assembled in the physical location. The other item that is listed in policy BDD is a clarification of how many times per year a board member can request to remotely participate, and that is 2 times per year or 25% of the amount of meetings you have. In other words, if you have 12 meetings, then potentially you could request to do so 3 times, and I hope that makes sense. Any questions about BDD? The other policy I just want to bring to the attention of the board is policy GAA, which is staff time schedules. Beginning July 1st, employees who are non-exempt under the Fair Labor Standards Act, again, beginning July 1st, employees who are non-exempt, if they accrue overtime during the work week, and that's beyond 40 hours, the division must pay them. Compensatory time, or comp time as it is better known, will no longer be available, and that begins July 1st. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that as well. And if there's no questions, then we would recommend that the policy revisions be approved as presented in the explanation of revisions.
Do you have any questions or discussions? Do we have a motion to approve the proposed VSBA policies and proposed revisions as presented?
I move.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that brings us down to the approval of 2021-2022 Dcpc Student and Parent Handbook and Dcps Handbook for Students. Mr. Setzer.
Mr. Chair, hopefully the board has had a chance to look at these two, I guess, rather lengthy booklets. The first one is the 21-22 Student Parent Handbook and Attendance Conduct Code Handbook. This is normally the yellow book. Next year, we're going to change it up a little bit. Coming out of COVID, it's going to be a light blue book. We always present this to the board. It is dependent upon the policies that you just passed, so all those corrections have been made in this handbook, and we ask for its approval. By the way, this book contains required notifications we must give parents and students before the school year, the notifications, most of them have to be presented to the parents and students during the first few days of the school year. Again, that's why we're on quite a time crunch. It takes the printers about a month to print these things, so we're lucky to have them by the first day. So again, we hope you've had a chance to review them, but we ask for approval.
I move to approve the handbook.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I move to the handbook.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, the second handbook is the Handbook of Expectation and Consequences for our students. This book is primarily put together by the administration in the schools, which we try, just to give you an example, if a child does something wrong at Clintwood Elementary and that child has to be punished, if another child at Sandlick does the same thing, the punishment should be in the same realm. This handbook establishes what we expect of our children, knowing that sometimes they do stray from what they should do, and it may involve a consequence. This handbook establishes those expectations and consequences for our students, so we ask for approval of this handbook as well.
We have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That brings us down to the approval of the FY22 Title I federal grant applications. Title I, Part A, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and Title V, Part B, Rural Schools. Mr. Mark Mullins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I I did email these earlier. I hope the board had an opportunity to see them. We have 5 federal program applications here that we need approval on tonight.
Excuse me, Mr. Mullins, it's the teal, the summary is in the teal of your packet.
Do we need to go ahead and address item O before we go to that?
I'm sorry?
We got item O, approval to pay bills after June 24th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, approval of the bills. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I see that, what you're saying. Thank you. Hold on, just Mr.
I'll be glad to.
Mr. Mullins, don't go anywhere. Thank you, Mr. Hackney. As I shared with the board members, we are requesting approval to pay bills from June the 24th through the 30th for the board members. We will not pay any bill unless you have seen it and you have, if any board member has a concern about a proposed paying of an invoice, we will stop the process right there and then put that invoice in the July for the board's discussion. But every invoice and every bill that we would like to pay between now and the 30th will be sent to you, again, for your look. And if anyone has an issue, please let me know immediately, and that will stop the process. In July, we will officially approve all of the bills for June and July, but since the board meeting is so early this year, we would just like to have an opportunity to get in as many bills as possible in this fiscal year. So we would just like the board's recommendation and consideration of that approval.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And we've done this before with utility bills. You know, they come in after board meetings, the board will allow us to pay for those and then approve them at the next meeting. Is that any issue, Mr. Mullins?
No, as long as they're ratified during the next meeting, but it's customary to try to close out the fiscal year and pay as many of those bills that were incurred in that fiscal year as you can. And it's the preferred method as opposed to having a special call meeting just to pay reoccurring bills.
And thank you again, Mr. Hackney. Now we're ready for Mr. Mullins.
Okay, our federal grant applications. We have 5 federal grants that we are requesting approval on tonight. Those are Title I, Part A, Improving Basic Programs, Title II, Part A, Supporting Effective Instruction, Title III, Language Instruction for English Learners, Title IV, Part A, Student Support and Academic Enrichment, and Title V, Part B, Rural Schools. As I said, hopefully everyone had an opportunity to look at those earlier. We are not proposing any changes or major changes to any of these grant applications for this coming school year. All 5 of these grants, of course, Title I being the largest of the 5 by far, but all 5 grants total approximately $1,111,200. They will cover salary and benefits cost for 14 full-time and 2 part-time employees. It'll also cover the cost of materials and supplies for our Title I program in our 3 elementary schools. These are estimated grant amounts. We will not get the final allocations for these grants until approximately September or October, and that's normal. That's normally the way it works with the state. But we're asking for approval of those, and I'll try to answer any questions of those or if anybody has any.
Is that about the same amount we're expecting that we got last year?
We based it on what we got last year, yes, and that's what the state advises us to do, It will change. Some will go up and some will go down. But the majority of these grants do cover, the vast majority cover salary and benefit costs. Title I is $896,000 of that $1.1 million.
Any more questions for Mr. Mullins? Do we have a motion to approve the proposed Title I, Part A, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and Title V, Part B, Rural Schools, as presented?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us down to the approval of the Clinchco lease and surplus properties. Mr. Scott Mullins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In a nutshell, these are two different issues. There was a lease that we had talked about in closed session. We approached the lessee about that. It's for that a portion of Clinchco property that's being used for those storage containers. Had a difficult time working through the insurance issues, nothing to do with the lessee, but just their insurance company. We insist on being named as an additional named insured whenever we allow people to use the property. We finally got that straightened out. So one of the things that would need is just a motion to approve the lease in the form that's approved by the school board attorney. It's not really an ongoing lease. We did not want a time commitment because we don't know what will come up with the Clinchco property. So it's a month-to-month thing. Upon 30 days' notice, they would have to leave. And so we're insured. We'll get a little bit of money off of it, but the big thing is to not incur, cost if there's litigation or any problems there. And again, this is what we talked about in closed session, and we've got that together. They've got their insurance now, naming the school board as an additional named insured. So I'll be asking you to allow the chair to sign that lease. And if there are questions about that, I'll try to answer them.
Well, mine's not really related to the lease. It's just what are we looking at, or when will we be able to have discussions on the timeline that we would, I assume that, that would be considered surplus since we're no longer using it for educational purposes. Is that?
Well, there's, that's...
It depends, I guess, on which part of the property.
That's right. And I actually met with Lehman Kendrick this afternoon, and I'll answer that question and sort of segue into the next issue of the surplus property at Clinchco. But I think somewhere in the maybe 30s or 40s, there was a whole lot of school districts in Dickinson County. And then when we built the new high school, I believe that we received a deed that contains about 60 tracts of land. The Dickinson County School Board did. And those 60 tracts of land were all those community schools that existed all over Dickinson County. And after that, the only time that those tracts of land have ever really gotten on our radar screen is whenever the gas company comes to us and says, we're going to drill a well and we're going to develop some gas under that property. So what we have declared to be surplus is we haven't done that a lot because I think we know a deed book and page number, but we physically don't know where a 200 by 200 feet property that there used to be a one-room school, we don't know where that's located until the gas company plots it for us. And so I say that to give you a foundation to understand what I'm about to say is that I talked to Lehman and Freddie today about getting together all of our properties that are surplus and making sure we understand where they are, and also getting together all of our properties that are wetlands mitigation properties. When we built this school, we worked with the IDA and the Board of Supervisors to put wetlands restrictions on 6 or 7 tracts of property. So there's going to be a concerted effort before Lehman leaves to identify these tracts and come back to you with a little bit more thorough discussion of what we have. And there's no reason for us as a school system to keep tracts of property that we're not going to use for educational purposes. Now, the Clinchco property that Mr. Hackney asked about, it has 2 concerns with it. The first is we do have the structure there that we currently use, as I understand, as a bus garage, and I'm not sure of any other uses of the brick building in the back. That's part of the same tract, so if we were going to declare that to be surplus, we would have to get a survey to identify the front portion that is grass. The other thing that we need to have a discussion with Lehman and with the new county attorney is because that property was part of the Corps of Engineers arrangement, and it was only a ring wall. It was not like, at the Irvington High School property. It was a different type of arrangement. But we need to come to get the facts so that the school board and the Board of Supervisors can understand what we're transferring and what we're not, because it could be that the future of that property is just what you see, which is a grass lot because of the prior Corps of Engineers involvement. I think that, and Mr. Robinson, correct me if I'm wrong, but we allow people from time to time to use that grass lot. I think Feeding America uses that lot. There's some benevolent things that go on there, and that's not to say that they wouldn't continue to go on. It's just that I think that there are things that are consistent with the school system's mission that go on there. And then we have things like yesterday I received a phone call from AEP, and they wanted to put 15 poles down there because they're going to be doing some electrical work in Clinchco. And we try to be a good neighbor, and I send them a little form that says, you agree that if you use it, it'll be for a limited amount of time, and you take the property as is, and you're responsible for your accidents, and you'll use it in compliance with law. But mostly, that property is for the benevolent purposes, and then for things like that. It would be a board decision as to when and whether you want to include that in a surplus property transfer. If you do, we need to maybe coordinate that with the new county attorney and with Lehman as far as all of the properties, and we would have to get a survey done.
I think it's well overdue to just be done. It's, it's a good thing to get all this into one consolidated piece to deal with.
Yeah,
everybody.
it is, and there's never a good time to go try to figure out where you own a little tract of land in the middle of the world, and we don't have the resources to go chasing down hypothetical things. We're more inclined with the problems that are brought in front of you. But if we can package that up with a little bit of help from Lehman, I would like to be able to turn all those surpluses properties back over to the Board of Supervisors. But anyway, for tonight, just so you, to sort of segue and drill down on the second thing that we would need done tonight is there's some properties in the town of Clinchco. There's 7 tracts in a deed. This property was actually declared surplus property in September 15 of 1980 by the school board. So the declaration of it being surplus has already been done. It's not being used as for any educational purposes. And so what I would like tonight would be 2 things. One is a motion to ratify the prior resolution of the Dickinson County School Board dated September 15, 1980, and authorize the chair to sign the deed conveying those tracts of land to the Board of Supervisors in the form that's been approved by both the county attorney and the school board attorney. So if one of you would make that motion, that would keep.
I'll go ahead and, can we do, you ready for that motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll go ahead and move to ratify that previous agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and then the next part of that would be to authorize us to enter into the lease, as we've previously discussed.
With the Clinchco property.
For the Clinchco property, yes, for the storage properties.
Need another motion for that?
Yes.
I so move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the DCPS Health and Wellness Policy. Mrs. Edwards?
Mr. Chairman and board members, in June of 2017, we developed our first wellness policy. And according to the guidelines, we have to do a triennial review on that wellness policy, which is every 3 years. But because of COVID last year, we were given a reprieve, and we didn't have to do the triennial review until this year. And it has to be completed by June the 30th. And I'll just give you a brief summary about the process that we've gone through. Tanya, I think, sent you an electronic copy of the policy and also a pink. You should have a pink covered, okay. So we started meeting. We have a joint SHAB, School Health Advisory Board, and Wellness Committee. Because we're so small, we don't have two separate committees. So we started meeting in April of this school year, on April the 15th, through a Zoom meeting. And we started looking, covered the process of the triennial review, and we started looking at our previous wellness policy. And we also gave the schools, DOE gives us a guideline to go by and a process, and there were some documents. So each school was asked to complete the WellSat 3, which is an online review of their wellness practices. And then we also had a wellness assessment worksheet, which was given to each of the schools, and a Healthy Habits Google form that was given to each of the schools. So the schools were asked to go back and, with their school committee, complete those forms, and they did. And Deborah, through Food Services, was also asked to complete a WellSat 1, which is an online review of our food service practices. It also includes some wellness things. And then I had to complete the WellSat 3 for the division. So we had a lot of documents to review as we were preparing a new wellness policy for this year. The document that you have in front of you was vetted with our community. We did have some community members. I put it on Facebook and also put it on our webpage, inviting folks. We did get one person to join us, which was very good. We also included our principals and our committees from each of our schools. We looked at the policy. Each of the principals had input. They looked at the rough draft. We had 3 meetings to go over some of the issues. Some of the principals had a few issues with healthy snacks because there was an issue of celebrations and how could we manage that, because they still wanted to do cupcakes, and how could we do that? So we worked through that, we compromised, and we have a statement in there that I think everybody can now live with, and the principals are supportive as well as everyone on our committee. So DOE provided the template, and so we have developed our policy, and it is before you, and I ask that you approve the policy. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. And I'm not opposed to cupcakes, so I'm not the cupcake.
Did you vote for the cupcake?
I tried to mediate that situation. So we came up with a good compromise.
There was an addendum added to the agreement.
It was a compromise. When you read through that, you'll see the compromise that's in there.
The cupcake compromise.
But that was,
I move we approve the DCPS Health and Wellness Policy.
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? No.
thank you.
Motion carries. This concludes our open session, and it's time for board comment. And I guess I'll start out and say that it pleases me that we've got through this year with COVID and all the challenges associated with the students, the faculties, and the citizens. It excites me to see the new elementary school to be built here, and even more, it excites me to ask for the use of the ESSER funds to house more education, elementary students. And it still makes me really proud. People, come into the funeral home and from almost every state in the union, and the first thing that I always ask them is, what are you doing after you go to Huddle House? I want to take you to Ridgeview. And it is so amazing to hear what people from other counties and other states say about our school system, about our Ridgeview. It's just wonderful. And to see the increase in the student population this year was a great thing. And it just really pleases me. It's a good day.
I would like to thank Ms. Taylor and all who worked on the salary scales. I can see a lot of work going into that, have gone into that. Number two, I hope that the ESSER 3 application will be approved, and the retirement incentives remain as is, with understanding that there may be changes in the future. And that's all my comments.
Well, I would just like to wish congratulations to the retirees once again. That's definitely a milestone, and they'll be missed by kids and certainly other staff members, that's for sure, but we wish them well. It's very exciting, the possibility of things that we can do with the ESSER funds, and it's nice to be without a mask. That maybe next year, the new normal will be a little closer to the old normal, and so I look forward to, getting started back into school and seeing the things that we can accomplish and that our kids can accomplish.
I would also like to recognize those persons, Tammy Davis, Peggy Edwards, Norma Hay, Lana Mullins, and Monica Wright. I got to work with all those people in my time, and we just have some of the best people here, best among any across this country. I think back to, I can't help reflect back to what Scott's saying there. I had to deal with the deed dealing with Buku, which isn't there anymore, but it's over in Frying Pan, way up in the hollow there. And thinking back to all those schools and farms, there's a building out from where I live on Long Ridge that was used as an elementary school back in the 1930s and 40s, I believe. And in those deeds, if the building quit being used as a school, it reverted back to the landowner. So that's why you had some schools actually named for individuals that lived there, because that was the Long School, they called, on Long Ridge at that time. And it's some history, but we have a history that goes back, we know the signs here in over in Clintwood that say the folks that lived here in the times of the Revolutionary War. You come to the 80s, and Buffalo School, I think, was one of the first, and Dixon, where the school board also sits, Dixon Memorial High School. And for those of you that read Meet Virginia's Baby or the Pioneer Recollections or other publications, you see the history and the character and the role of the church in those old meetings and various public membership in the government, et cetera, and what dedicated good people we have. And all the people that are here now, they are rightful inheritors of that good and decent living and hard work. And I want our people to have, I'd like for our young people to have a place to come back to work here. Obviously, the school system is one of the major employers, probably, I think Ms. Ross said the second largest employer in Dixon County, but I wished we had a way to keep them all here, and though I realize that's probably not possible. But we have some of the best students, some of the best teachers, some of the best parents and grandparents, support, and I think all of those that serve in public office or appointive office need to do everything we can to make all of our conversations more civil, more direct, everything out in the open, let it be seen by all, and have no secrets in public, and as far as especially the public money. I want our teachers to be compensated and provided at least a competitive status as far as insurance and salary, etc. All employees in the system, whatever position they're in, let it be a fair wage and benefit. And I know, and I sympathize and empathize with the Board of Supervisors. I know they're in a tough spot. But I hope that we can still provide the quality. I again emphasize this beautiful campus and what's coming out here, and all the good things academic-wise. When you move from the bottom quartile to the top quartile in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it's worth noting. And it took a whole lot of people's good work to make all that happen. And I just hope that we all continue to support each other, work better with each other, and make those people that have gone on and kind of made that path for us all to, if they were here, they'd be proud of what we were doing today. And that's the way it ought to be.
Well, I'm looking back over the agenda for tonight. There, just kind of hit me that we had some very important issues on our agenda tonight, some very important topics. And you look at from the ESSER funds to the retirement incentive and all those things. I just wanted to say that I'm pleased with how things turned out and what we accomplished just even tonight. I appreciate my fellow board members and everyone involved with getting some of these issues taken care of, also with the properties that we're dealing with. It's important to address those matters. I wanted to thank Mr. Edwards, one of our teachers, for coming tonight and bringing up a very important issue as far as equity and level playing field for our students with a 10-point grading system. I think it's worth having that discussion. I don't know how that discussion will go. There's pros and cons on everything, but I think with that one there's a lot of pros to talk about, and hopefully we can do that soon. Hopefully we can have that discussion at the next meeting. Also echo and thank the retirees that were recognized tonight. Knew several of them, especially know Ms. Hay very well. I told her as she came by up here tonight that the principal at Sand Lick and the entire Sand Lick community, the word you always hear about her is irreplaceable, how irreplaceable she's going to be. And I think that's a very appropriate comment for her, and we're going to miss her, and we appreciate all the retirees for their service to our community and our kids.
Okay, at this time, we will now go into closed session. And pursuant to Section 2.2-3711, Paragraph A of the Code of Virginia, there will be a closed meeting for the purpose of, number one, employment issues relating to discussion or consideration of specific individuals for employment as teachers, school secretary, bookkeeper, custodian, principal, school nurse, bus drivers, coaches, FMLA request, resignations, and superintendent's evaluation. And number two, to consult with legal counsel regarding the investment of public funds associated with school construction and consultation regarding actual or probable litigation, along with consultation regarding specific matters requiring legal advice pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1, 6, 7, and 8 of the Code of Virginia. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now in closed session.